The unexpected. Scan the Galactic Fleet was one of the most powerful forces in the entire galaxy. Their ships were enormous, their technology far more advanced than anything humans had ever imagined. They ruled the stars, exploring distant planets, and controlling vast stretches of space. Nothing in the galaxy could surprise them. Or so they thought. On this particular mission, the fleet had been sent to a remote region of space, far from any known civilization. There were no signs of life or interesting resources in the area, so it seemed like just another routine patrol. The fleet's officers sat in their command rooms, bored and waiting for something exciting to happen. But the mission was quiet, and time moved slowly. Captain Jorax, the leader of the fleet's patrol ship, was lounging in his chair when a sudden alert flashed on the control panel. It was a standard scan request. There was nothing unusual about it, except for the fact that the signal was coming from a small, human vessel. It was odd for a human ship to be so far from Earth. Jorax raised an eyebrow. Humans usually stuck to their own corner of space, so why would a human ship be all the way out here? "Scan the vessel," Captain Jorax ordered, curious but not overly concerned. "It's probably just some lost explorers or a cargo ship off course." The crew quickly activated the fleet's advanced scanning technology. It was a simple process. The scanners could identify almost anything, planets, ships, hidden technology, without even getting close. The fleet's ship was equipped with the best scanning systems in the galaxy, and the humans had nothing to match it. As the scan began, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The human ship was small, old even, and definitely not a military vessel. Its energy readings were weak, and its structure appeared to be held together by outdated technology. But then something strange happened. As the scan continued, the readings began to change. At first it was a small blip, something so minor that the crew thought it was just a glitch. But then it happened again. The human ship's energy levels surged, suddenly spiking far beyond what the scan had predicted. The readings became even more confusing. There were fluctuations in the energy source, energy that didn't match anything the fleet had ever seen before. The ship seemed to be alive, pulsing with strange energy, as though it was powered by something impossible. "What is that?" Officer Zora, the fleet's lead scientist, asked as she stared at the screen in shock. Captain Jorax stood up, his eyes narrowing. He had never seen anything like this before. A human ship, barely able to keep itself together, was emitting power readings that defied logic. This wasn't just a glitch. This was something real, something dangerous. "Run a full diagnostic," Jorax ordered, his voice steady but with a hint of uncertainty. "We need to know what we're dealing with." The crew scrambled to recheck their scans. They sent out more focused beams of energy to analyze the human vessel from every possible angle. Each scan revealed more mysteries. The human ship's metal hull was strangely resistant to the fleet's most advanced scans. No one could figure out what was happening. Officer Zora ran another test and frowned. "Captain, the energy readings are not from any known power source. This ship shouldn't even be operational. It's as if it's powered by an unknown force, something we've never encountered before." Jorax felt a cold shiver down his spine. In all his years of command, he had never seen anything like this. The fleet had encountered countless alien species, explored dozens of planets, and analyzed technologies that were millions of years old. But nothing could explain what was happening now. A human ship, an outdated and primitive vessel, was emitting power beyond anything their most advanced scanners could understand. "Are you sure?" Jorax asked, his voice calm but laced with a growing sense of danger. "Positive," Zora replied. "The readings are clear. This ship is emitting an energy signature that is beyond our comprehension." Jorax turned to the rest of the bridge crew, his mind racing. What did this mean? How could a human vessel be carrying something like this? He had to know more. He ordered the fleet to approach the human ship. They would need to get closer, investigate more thoroughly. But as the fleet's ship moved closer, something even stranger occurred. The energy signature from the human ship began to shift again. This time, it wasn't just power. It was something else. Something much more unsettling. The entire ship seemed to be alive. The energy fields around it flickered and changed as if the ship itself was reacting to the fleet's presence. "Captain, I don't like this," Officer Zora said, her voice shaking. "Whatever this is, it's not natural." Jorax looked out at the small human vessel floating in the emptiness of space and felt a deep sense of unease. What had they stumbled upon? A simple scan of a lost human ship had turned into a mystery that could change everything the Galactic Fleet knew about the galaxy, and they still had no idea what they were truly dealing with. But one thing was clear. The scan had uncovered something impossible, and the Galactic Fleet would soon learn just how dangerous that discovery could be. The fleet's crew was still stunned by what they had just discovered. Captain Jorax stood in silence, staring at the strange data displayed on the bridge. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what they had found. How could a simple human ship be emitting energy readings far beyond anything the Galactic Fleet had ever encountered? The technology was supposed to be centuries behind their own. Yet, here it was, defying all logic. Officer Zora, the fleet's lead scientist, was working furiously at her console, trying to decipher the impossible readings. "Captain," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I've never seen anything like this. The ship's energy levels are fluctuating, but they don't match anything in our records. It's as if it's being powered by something completely unknown." The captain's brow furrowed. "What does that mean exactly?" Zora hesitated, her fingers hovering over the console as if unsure where to begin. "It means that the human ship's power source isn't any known form of energy. It's as if it's alive, Captain. I can't explain it. The scans are showing readings that don't fit any kind of pattern we know. This shouldn't be possible." Jorax's mind was spinning. The fleet had explored countless star systems, encountered alien civilizations with technology far beyond what humans could imagine. Yet they had never found anything like this. For centuries, the Galactic Fleet had stood as the ultimate power in the galaxy. They had mastered energy, weapons, and technology that seemed to defy the laws of nature. But this human ship was challenging everything they knew. "Are you telling me that this human vessel is some kind of living thing?" Jorax asked, trying to wrap his mind around the impossible scenario. "It's not that simple," Zora replied, her voice steady now. "It's as if the ship is resonating with some form of energy that we've never encountered. It's almost as though it's drawing power from something outside the usual bounds of physics. We can't even measure it properly." Jorax ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts racing. What would a human ship be doing with a power source like that? How could they even have access to something so advanced? His mind was filled with questions, each one more troubling than the last. He motioned to Zora. "I want a full analysis, every scan, every detail. If there's anything we're missing, I want to know." Zora nodded, typing commands into her console. "Understood, Captain." The crew continued to work in silence, their focus entirely on the mysterious human vessel. The fleet's advanced scanners continued to probe the ship, but each new scan only revealed more baffling results. The ship's outer hull, despite its age, seemed to be completely intact, with no signs of damage or wear. It was as if the ship had been preserved perfectly over time, yet it was clear that its technology should have long since become obsolete. "Captain," Officer Zora said after a long pause, "there's something else strange. I've detected an unusual energy signature coming from inside the ship. It's unlike anything we've encountered. It's not coming from any of the ship's systems, but it's almost like it's being shielded from our scans." Jorax's interest piqued. "Shielded? How is that possible? Are we being jammed?" Zora shook her head. "No, it's not interference. It's more like a hidden compartment, a space where normal readings don't apply. It's almost as if the ship is hiding something." The captain was silent for a moment, his thoughts turning over the possibilities. A hidden compartment inside a simple human ship, it made no sense. What could the humans possibly be hiding? They were explorers, after all, just a small and young species in the vastness of the galaxy. But now there was something about this ship that made Jorax uneasy. It was no ordinary human vessel. "We need to investigate this further," Jorax said, his voice firm. Prepare a boarding party. I want to know exactly what's inside that ship. Zora looked up from her console, concern written on her face. Captain, are you sure about this? We don't know what we're dealing with. The energy signatures are unstable. We could be walking into a trap. Jorax locked eyes with her. I don't care. We need answers. This ship could change everything we know about the galaxy. If it's hiding something, we need to find out what. The crew quickly prepared for the boarding mission. They gathered their equipment, their minds filled with uncertainty. No one knew what they would find on that ship. Some of them wondered if they should be afraid of what the humans had uncovered, or worse, afraid of what they had already unleashed. As the boarding party entered their transport ship, they couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. They were about to board a vessel that held mysteries beyond their comprehension. A human ship, small and seemingly insignificant, was now at the center of a mystery that could alter the course of the entire galaxy. As the transport ship moved toward the human vessel, the energy signature grew stronger. It was almost as if the ship was calling to them, pulling them in, urging them to uncover its secrets. The closer they got, the more strange and unsettling the readings became. The ship seemed to pulse with life, as if it were aware of their approach. When they finally docked with the human vessel, the door slid open, and the team stepped into the eerie quiet of the ship. It was dark inside, and the air was thick with a strange energy. The crew moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. They didn't know what they were about to discover, but one thing was certain: this was no ordinary human ship. The team continued to move deeper into the vessel, drawn toward the unknown. They were about to find out that the impossible wasn't just a theory, it was a reality, hidden in the most unexpected place. The human ship was more than they could ever have imagined, and the mystery it held would soon change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. As the team moved deeper into the human ship, a sense of tension filled the air. The crew's steps were cautious, their eyes darting from one corner of the dimly lit interior to another. The human vessel was quiet, far too quiet for something that should have been abandoned or left to drift in space. The silence was unsettling, and every sound they made seemed amplified in the narrow, cramped corridors. Lieutenant Rethan, the fleet's tactical officer, was the first to break the silence. "This place is strange," he said, his voice low as if he feared disturbing something. "It doesn't feel like a normal ship, it feels different." Captain Jorax nodded, his gaze sharp. "We know it's different, Rethan. Keep your focus, we need answers." The crew moved through the ship slowly, methodically. They passed through corridors lined with what seemed to be ancient control panels, blinking faintly with dim, inconsistent lights. The ship was old, its walls worn and scratched with age, yet its inner workings, if the scanners were to be believed, were anything but outdated. There was still power running through it, and the strange energy readings were growing, stronger with each passing second. The deeper they ventured into the ship, the more disorienting it became. It was as if the very structure of the vessel was designed to confuse them. The hallways twisted and turned in ways that shouldn't have been possible for a ship of its size. The team passed through rooms that appeared to loop back on themselves, only to find themselves somewhere entirely different. It was as if the ship itself was shifting, adapting to their movements. There were no windows, no obvious means of navigation. It was as though the ship existed in its own separate space, detached from the rules of reality. Zora, the fleet's chief scientist, stopped in her tracks. "Captain," she said, her voice edged with uncertainty, "I'm detecting an anomaly. I think we've found something." Jorax turned to her, his expression unreadable. "What is it?" Zora's fingers moved quickly over her console, running more scans. "It's hard to explain. There's a section of the ship, a compartment we couldn't detect before. It's hidden. The energy signatures coming from it are overwhelming. I don't think it's just a power source, it feels like the heart of the ship." "How do we get there?" Jorax asked, already knowing the answer. The crew had come this far, and they couldn't turn back now. Zora studied the map of the ship again, her brow furrowing. "There's no direct way. The layout is wrong. There's a section of the ship we'll have to pass through, but we'll need to access it from a different angle. It might take some time. Time is something we don't have, Jorax replied sharply. We move now. They proceeded to the hidden area that Zora had detected, each step filled with a growing sense of anticipation. The strange feeling of being watched hung over them, though there was no one else on board. The corridors narrowed and the air became cooler, almost colder. A soft hum resonated from the walls, a low, almost imperceptible sound that seemed to vibrate through the ship itself. It was unsettling, as if the ship had its own heartbeat, an ancient pulse that never stopped. As they neared the hidden compartment, the energy signature intensified. The ship's power seemed to be focused in one specific area, drawing them closer, like a magnet. There, in front of them, was a large metallic door. Unlike the rest of the ship, it was sleek and almost polished, as if it had been designed for something important. The door was sealed tightly, but Zora's tools easily detected a hidden mechanism that would allow them to open it. "Stand back," she ordered, her voice calm despite the tension. She activated the mechanism, and with a soft hiss, the door slid open. The moment it did, a strange wave of energy washed over them. It was so strong that it made the hair on the back of their necks stand up. Inside, they found something truly extraordinary. At first glance, it looked like a simple room, but as they stepped inside, they realized it was much more than that. The walls were lined with intricate patterns, symbols, and alien designs that none of them could recognize. It was as if the room was not just part of the ship, but a relic of something far older, something that had been hidden for a reason. In the center of the room was an object that radiated a soft, glowing light. It was an orb, suspended in midair, held by an invisible force. The orb was the source of the energy signature they had detected, and it was unlike anything they had ever seen before. It pulsed with energy, its glow shifting from blue to green, to an eerie purple as if it were alive. The crew stood in awe, unable to tear their eyes away from it. "What is it?" Zora whispered, stepping closer to the orb, her hand instinctively reaching toward it. Captain Jorax held up his hand, signaling her to stop. "Don't touch it," he ordered firmly. "We have no idea what that thing is. It could be dangerous." But it wasn't just danger that filled the room. It was a sense of discovery. This orb, this artifact, was beyond anything they had ever encountered. It was ancient, yet it seemed to pulse with life, as if it held secrets to the universe itself. The crew could feel the weight of history pressing down on them. They were standing in front of something that could change everything they knew about the galaxy. Jorax's mind raced. This wasn't just a human ship. This was a vessel that held something far greater, something far more important than they could have ever imagined. And now the Galactic Fleet had found it. The orb was a key to something ancient, something powerful. And the humans had found it. As the crew continued to study the object, they began to realize that the true mystery wasn't just about the ship or the energy readings. It was about who had placed this artifact here and why. The questions swirled in their minds, unanswered and growing. They needed to uncover the truth, but as they looked at the glowing orb, they couldn't shake the feeling that the answers might be far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The crew stood in stunned silence, the glowing orb casting strange shadows on the walls of the chamber. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if the very presence of the object was changing the environment around them. Captain Jorax was the first to break the stillness, his voice low and commanding. "Zora, gather more data on the orb. We need to understand what we're dealing with before making any decisions." Zora nodded quickly, her hands moving over her console, running a fresh set of scans. The orb's energy signature was unlike anything she had encountered. It was powerful, but not in a way that she could easily measure or categorize. The pulses coming from it seemed to fluctuate randomly, yet they felt deliberate, as if the orb were somehow communicating with them. If only they could understand its language. "It's not just energy," Zora said, frowning at the screen. "There's a pattern to it. It's like it's transmitting something, but the signal is encrypted in a way I can't decipher." The frequency it's using is unlike anything we've seen. It's almost as if the orb is alive. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The idea that the orb was alive in a sense they could understand, was deeply unsettling. It was as if they were standing in front of something ancient, a remnant of a long-lost civilization, and its power wasn't just technological. It was something more profound, something beyond their understanding. Could it be some kind of weapon? Lieutenant Rethan asked, his voice full of doubt. No, Jorax replied firmly, shaking his head. If it were a weapon, we would have detected its presence before we boarded. This is something different, something far more complex. We need to keep studying it. As Zora continued her work, the rest of the crew explored the room, looking for anything that might give them more answers. But the room was eerily empty, save for the orb and the strange, intricate designs that covered the walls. The patterns seemed to shift if they stared at them for too long, as if the very designs were alive as well, reacting to their presence. Captain, I'm seeing something else, Zora said, her voice tense. There's an inscription on the wall near the orb. It's written in a language I don't recognize, but it seems to be repeating itself, almost like a warning. Jorax moved over to where Zora was working, his eyes scanning the symbols on the wall. The patterns were ancient, alien, and utterly beyond his understanding. Yet there was something familiar about them, something that seemed to resonate deep within him, as if they were calling to him on a subconscious level. Can you translate it? He asked. Zora shook her head. I don't know. I've never seen anything like this before. But these markings, this inscription, it's like a map, a guide. It's directing us somewhere. And I think it's pointing to something even bigger than this ship. Jorax's heart skipped a beat. A map? To where? Zora's eyes were wide with realization. I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it could be where the orb came from, or perhaps where it needs to go. I'm detecting an energy pulse that is consistent with the orb's signal, but it's coming from deep within the ship. The captain felt a surge of urgency. Prepare the team to move. Out. We're going to follow this trail. If this orb is pointing us to something, we need to know what it is. The crew quickly gathered their equipment, ready to venture further into the ship. The energy from the orb still pulsed in the air around them, almost as if it were beckoning them to follow. There was a deep sense of mystery and foreboding in the atmosphere. Every step they took through the corridors seemed to echo louder than the last, as if the ship itself was alive, watching them, guiding them towards something unknown. As they navigated deeper into the vessel, the walls seemed to shift once again. The corridors twisted in ways that defied logic, and the once familiar layout of the ship became a maze of unfamiliar turns and strange spaces. But with each step, the crew felt the orb's pull growing stronger, its energy guiding them toward something unseen. It was as if the ship itself were a living organism, responding to their presence, moving them toward a hidden truth. Finally, after what seemed like hours of navigating through the ship's labyrinthine halls, they reached another, sealed door. This one was even more complex than the last, with a series of glowing symbols etched across it, mirroring the inscriptions they had seen earlier. Zora quickly went to work, analyzing the symbols and trying to decipher them. It's locked, but I think I can open it, Zora said, her voice filled with concentration. These symbols, they're part of a sequence. If we place the right energy signature into the lock, it should open. The crew stood back, waiting as Zora worked. The door slowly began to hum, and the symbols on its surface began to glow brighter. It was a slow process, but the tension in the air was palpable. What could they possibly find behind this door? And why had it been hidden away, concealed by ancient mechanisms? As the door finally slid open, the crew was met with a sight that took their breath away. Beyond the threshold was a massive chamber. The walls were covered in the same strange symbols, but here they seemed to shimmer with a life of their own. In the center of the room was a colossal structure, unlike anything they had ever seen. It looked like a temple, built from some kind of glowing crystal. The structure hummed with energy, and the light from the orb seemed to amplify its power. At the base of the structure, a pedestal stood, and resting on it was something they had not expected. A human artifact, almost identical to the orb they had found earlier, except this one was larger, more intricate, and it seemed to pulse with an even greater intensity. The crew stood in awe as the realization hit them. This wasn't just a ship. It was a relic, a part of something much larger, something far more ancient. And it was leading them to a discovery that would change everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Jorax took a step forward, his heart pounding. They were on the verge of uncovering something monumental, something that could change the fate of the galaxy. The truth they were about to discover might have the power to reshape the balance of power in the universe itself, but there was still so much they didn't understand. And yet one thing was clear. The humans had stumbled upon something far beyond their wildest dreams, something that had been hidden away for millennia. And now, the Galactic Fleet was about to uncover it. As the crew stood in awe before the massive crystalline structure, a sense of unease began to settle over them. The chamber, though beautiful, felt alien in a way they couldn't quite explain. The air seemed charged with an energy that hummed through their bodies, making the hairs on the back of their necks stand on end. The pedestal at the center, where the larger orb rested, was surrounded by glowing symbols that pulsed in sync with the rhythm of the orb's energy. Captain Jorax stepped forward, his mind racing with possibilities. "What is this place?" he whispered almost to himself, as he gazed at the glowing structure. It felt like a sacred space, like a place of power, an ancient site that had been untouched for millennia. Whatever this was, it was far beyond anything they had ever encountered. Zora, who had remained silent since they entered the chamber, was the first to speak. "This structure, it's not just a ship, it's something more. I believe it's some sort of ancient temple, but not in the traditional sense. This whole ship may be part of something much larger, something that could have been built by an entirely different species." Jorax turned toward her. "Are you suggesting that this place, this ship, was created by a civilization we've never heard of? A species that could manipulate energy in ways we can't even begin to understand?" Zora nodded slowly. "Yes, the technology we're seeing here is not like anything from the known galaxy. This ship, the orbs, this energy, it all points to something far older, something ancient." She paused and looked at the glowing symbols surrounding them. "But there's something else. These markings, they're not just decorative. They tell a story. They're a record of some kind. If we could decipher them, it might tell us what this place really is, and who built it." As the crew stood in the heart of the chamber, the pulsing energy of the orb seemed to reach out to them, as if it were beckoning them forward. But a new sense of caution began to grow within the group. For the first time since they boarded the human vessel, the unknown felt like a tangible presence, an unknown that could be dangerous. Lieutenant Rethan was the first to break the silence. "We need to be careful," he said quietly, his voice tinged with concern. "The deeper we go into this ship, the more we don't understand. It feels like we're on the verge of something far beyond our control." Jorax nodded gravely. "I agree, but we've come this far. We need to understand what's inside this ship and why the humans have it. There's something important here, something that could change everything." Zora moved toward the pedestal, her hands hovering above the larger orb. "We can't just take it. There's more to this than we realize. The way this room is arranged, the way the orb interacts with the structure, it's like it's a part of something greater. Taking it might trigger something we don't fully understand." Captain Jorax placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then let's find out what happens when we try. We've come this far. We need to know the truth." Zora hesitated, but then, with a determined look, she reached out and touched the orb gently. The moment her fingers made contact, the room seemed to respond. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, the energy pulsing with an intensity that rattled the walls around them. It was as if the orb had come alive, reacting to her touch. Suddenly, the structure began to hum, the vibrations in the room growing stronger, filling the crew with a sense of urgency. The energy in the room was building, intensifying at an alarming rate. The crew stepped back, their instincts screaming at them to retreat. But before they could move, a new sound filled the air, a low, deep thrum that echoed through the chamber. It was as if the ship itself was speaking to them, its ancient heart beating in sync with the pulses of the orb. Zora backed away from the pedestal, her eyes wide with both fear and fascination. "I think we've activated something," she said, her voice trembling. "This ship, it's alive. I don't think it's just a vessel. It's a part of something much larger. The orb, the symbols, the structure, this is a gateway. A key." Jorax's mind raced. A gateway? To what? What could this ship, this ancient relic, be leading them to? Was it some sort of portal to another place? Or was it a way to access a power so ancient, so immense, that it could change the entire galaxy? As the chamber continued to hum, the crew's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden surge of energy. The walls began to shift, as if the very structure of the ship was rearranging itself. The energy readings spiked and the floor beneath them began to tremble. It was like the ship was waking up, reacting to their presence and the activation of the orb. "Captain," Zora called out. "The ship's changing. It's shifting. We need to get out of here." Jorax didn't move. His mind was fixated on the growing energy. "No, we're staying. This might be the key to everything we've been searching for. This ship could have the answers to questions we've never even thought to ask." As the energy continued to surge, the crew watched in awe and fear. The symbols on the walls of the chamber seemed to be rearranging themselves, forming new patterns. The ship was alive, responding to the orb, and it was clear that they were about to uncover something far greater than they had ever imagined. The walls parted, revealing a new passageway that led deeper into the ship, hidden from view until now. The doorway outlined by the shifting symbols beckoned them forward. It was like a door to the unknown, a door that held secrets that could change the galaxy forever. Without hesitation, Captain Jorax turned toward his crew. "We're going through. Whatever lies ahead, we face it together." Zora hesitated for a moment, then nodded. The team moved forward, their footsteps echoing in the vast chamber, and as they passed through the newly revealed doorway, they were led into a vast corridor, one that seemed to stretch endlessly into the unknown. The energy pulsed stronger now, guiding them, urging them forward into the heart of the ship's secret. What they were about to find could change the fate of the galaxy. But what Jorax didn't yet realize was that this journey would take them far beyond anything they had ever encountered, and the true nature of the ship and the mysterious force behind it was about to be revealed. The corridor stretched ahead, its walls lined with shimmering symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The crew moved cautiously, their footsteps reverberating in the eerie silence. Each step felt heavier, the air growing thicker with anticipation. There was something profound ahead, something they could feel in the very core of their being. The ship was leading them, but to what? Jorax led the way, his eyes scanning every detail. The further they ventured, the more the ship seemed to change around them. The walls, once smooth and polished, were now adorned with ancient engravings, patterns, that seemed to shift and swirl as they moved past. The hum of the energy from the orb, now distant but still palpable, echoed through the corridors, a constant reminder that they were not alone in this vast and mysterious place. Zora, walking beside him, couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was alive, the energy that pulsed through the walls, the strange symbols that seemed to move as if guided by an invisible hand. It was as if the ship had a mind of its own, and they were simply intruders in its domain. The closer they got to the end of the corridor, the more this feeling grew until it became impossible to ignore. "There's something up ahead," Zora said, her voice tight with nervous energy. "I can feel it. It's waiting for us." Jorax nodded. He had felt it too, that pull, that unseen force guiding them. The corridor ahead seemed to grow darker, the walls closing in on them, almost as if the ship itself was reacting to their presence. The air felt charged with an unseen power, and the sense of something ancient and beyond their understanding grew stronger with each passing moment. Finally, they reached the end of the corridor. Before them stood a large, circular chamber. The door was unlike anything they had seen before. A massive glowing archway framed by intricate carvings that resembled constellations, each one pulsating with light. As the crew stepped into the chamber, the temperature dropped and the hum of energy grew louder, more intense. It was as if the ship itself was alive, its heart beating in rhythm with the pulse of the orb they had discovered earlier. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, much like the one they had seen before, but this one was different. The pedestal was made of the same glowing crystal material that formed the structure of the ship, and it radiated an energy that seemed to call to them. Atop the pedestal rested a third orb, larger and more complex than the previous ones. It was almost as if the orbs were part of a set, and this final one was the key to understanding everything. Jorax felt a surge of emotion, excitement, fear, awe. They had come this far, and now, standing in the heart of the ship, they were on the verge of unlocking something unimaginable. What had brought them here? What secrets did this orb hold? Zora moved closer to the pedestal, her fingers tingling with the power radiating from the orb. "This is it," she whispered. "This is what the ship has been leading us to. It's a key, but to what?" Before Jorax could respond, the chamber seemed to react. The air thickened and a low vibration began to hum from the orb, spreading through the room. The symbols on the walls flared to life, glowing brighter, swirling into complex patterns that seemed to communicate in a language they couldn't understand. The energy in the chamber intensified, and the entire room seemed to shimmer, as if it were shifting between dimensions. "It's awakening," Zora said, backing away from the pedestal. "The ship, it's not just a vessel, it's a gateway, a doorway to something else, but we don't know where it leads." Jorax's mind raced as he absorbed Zora's words. A gateway. That's what this ship was, a portal. But to where? And why had it been hidden away, abandoned for so long? Could this be the key to a forgotten empire? Or perhaps a lost civilization, its knowledge waiting to be rediscovered? The possibilities were endless, and the weight of their discovery pressed down on him. But there was more. As the orb hummed louder, the walls began to shift, revealing more symbols. Symbols that matched the ones they had seen on the human ship. The patterns were familiar, yet they seemed to be forming new sequences, as if the ship was trying to tell them something. The energy grew so intense that it felt as though the chamber itself was alive, reacting to their presence. Zora stepped forward again, her hand trembling as she reached out toward the orb. I think this is it. The final piece. If we can activate it, we'll unlock the ship's true purpose. But we need to understand what's happening first." Jorax stepped in front of her. "No. We're not just going to activate it without understanding the consequences. We don't know what we're dealing with." But as he spoke, the energy in the room seemed to respond to him. The orb pulsed once, then twice, sending a wave of energy through the chamber that made the crew stagger. The vibrations were so strong now that the floor beneath them began to tremble. Something was happening, something they couldn't control. Suddenly, the walls of the chamber shifted, revealing an enormous display that stretched across the entire room. The display flickered to life, showing holographic images of star systems, planets, and vast stretches of space. The image zoomed in on one particular planet, an uncharted world, far beyond the reaches of any known map. The ship's display was showing something else now. A map. A guide to something hidden on that distant planet. Jorax's heart skipped a beat. The ship wasn't just a relic. It was a map to a world that had been forgotten, lost to time. And this orb, it was the key to finding it. But what could they expect to find there? Was it an ancient power, a long-lost civilization, or perhaps something even more dangerous? "We need to go there," Jorax said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "This ship is leading us to something that could change everything." Zora looked at the map on the display, her face pale with realization. "We don't know what's waiting for us. This could be a trap, or something far worse. We can't just walk into the unknown without knowing what we're facing." But Jorax was resolute. "We don't have a choice. Whatever it is, we have to find out. We're the only ones who can uncover the truth."